So we are going to start the Python skills number 2. So this is about the classes and some useful methods. I'm going to start from the second page because from second page, it's going over some methods. If you see the second page, there are very useful library named random. We're gonna use random a lot, so it's good to know. Especially two methods we are going to use. One method is randint. Whenever we need to choose the random index or random integer, we're gonna use random.randint. Random is a special library, so if you want to use it, you have to import, but it's a default, so you don't have to install it. Randint has a little different with other two number argument method because this one includes the second number. You can see the bracket here, it's inclusive. Both numbers are inclusive. Then you can also use the choice method. Choice method is list, then it returns a random value, not the index. When you use random, you can import random, then you can say random.method name, or you can import the method itself. Only if you are going to use only choice method, you are going to import only choice method. In that case, you don't have to say random dot before. You can also import all the methods in the random module by using the asterisk. Asterisk means everything. Like Java, Python, you can also define a resource class, just a class. So when you define a class, instead of df, you're gonna say class, then class name. Then you can make constructor. In the constructor is underscore bar twice, init underscore bar twice. So init means like initialize. So this one is a constructor, but you're going to have only one constructor because you can do arbitrarily parameter. That means you can give initial value when you define parameter. This means C is optional. A and B, you must get input from user. Then C, if user does not give input, you're gonna have back here. So C, if you give value, automatically becomes a 6. That's their example. 2 argument constructor example, then 3 argument constructor example. So very flexible. So it can be 2 or 3 arg constructors. Python class also have attributes. Whenever you define attribute, you are going to say self.a. It's like in Java private field, but it's public. I'm going to say, so I'm going to use a different name because if we use fields, we are going to confuse about if it's a private or not. So I'm going to just say attributes. Then when you define method inside of class, you're going to have 2 kinds of method. One is a static method or class method. Then the other one is instance method. Instance method you use with object name. Whenever you define instance method, you are going to start with the self comma. That means it is belongs to the self object, this object. So D method, E method, you are going to use object name, lowercase a, b, c. But the class method without self, this C method, you are going to use with the class name. So you can think about in Java, you can make the instance method and static method together inside of a class. Yeah, Python, you can still do that. Also, is self the name of the object? Yeah, you can think about that way. So self is like almost like as this in Java. Then in Python, we also use super, but in Python, super is a super method. In Java, super was just a keyword. Now Python, it is a method. You can think about that as like a constructor. When you define a child class, you are going to pass superclass as an argument, parameter. You define it. So ABC is a superclass. That means that this child class inherits all the method, actually all the instance method, only self methods, then attributes. So you are going to define the superclasses attributes, initialize superclasses attributes by using super parentheses dot call the supers constructor init, then pass values. Then if you have additional attributes, you are going to initialize in your child constructor. Arbitrary means you are going to have some flexibility. This means if user info is not passed, you are going to make one. And if user info is passed, you are going to update it. We are not using yet, so when we use it, I'm going to explain more. Reading a text file is important because using through the unit 2, every assignment we are going to read a file to get data, even the next lab also. So there are two ways to open and read a file. You can use with open, then pass the file name with the directory, if there's a directory, as your reference name. This is your reference for your file. Or if it's too long, you can do in file equals just open, then file name. Either way. Actually, you're supposed to say comma and you know how you will use it. So R means reading, read, but read is default. So if you are reading a file, you don't have to put. This is optional. When you read it, you are going to, most likely, you're going to use a read lines method. So you are going to store each line in a list first. Then you are going to work on line by line. Stream means trim, and split means using the token like a space or tab, split the values, and also create a list. It's like a split method in string in Java. The rest of them you can look at how you store in the dictionary sample. Then when you write on a text file, you are going to see two options. One is W, one is A. A means append, W means write. If you want to write to the existing, it replace, so restart writing the file. If you want to add to the file, existing file, you're going to use append. It does not delete the previous one, just add to the next lines whenever you want to print there. Then when you use A, if the file does not exist, it creates one. Out file also, you can say out file equals open, then file name, then option. When you write on a file, we are going to use a write method, like a print write. Whenever you work on with a file, we highly recommend to try and catch. In Python, we use a try and except. So if I go back to the front page, how those methods were used. First, there is a node class with one or default constructor, one arg or default constructor. If you do not give a value, it automatically becomes 0. So it's only one attribute value. Then it has two instance methods. Tree node is a subclass of node. It has three attributes, but actually value is inherited attribute. Value is passed to the super. Then there is left and right. Left and right are initialists get the value none. That means left and right has none is it's like a kind of null in Java. You're giving the nothing object. None is also object like Java. Java has a null object. Python has a none object. to hold nothing. Then if you look at here, child class tree node has a method self. Oh, but superclass has also a method self. We call it overriding. That means you are going to redefine in the subclass. Then when you call the method with the subclass, you are going to use subclass method. So we can see Python is also object-oriented programming, which has three features: encapsulation. Then you can make resource class and make an object with encapsulating all the values and methods. Another one we saw was inheritance, superclass, subclass. How about the last? Yeah, polymorphism means in the subclass, when you override a superclass method, you are going to use a subclass method. So you can use in many ways with one action. Now, when you define node object, you're gonna just say node, the class name, and parentheses. And every attribute in Python is public, so you can directly access and that value. Then when you want to use a method, yeah, object name that instance method. If you look at here, this is what you did at the beginning of the tree unit in the AP Comp Sci. First, root is made. So here's a root. Then there's a left tree node. Left is a tree node with a value, random value. So here's left. Then right is a tree node. So there is something on the right side, the tree node. Then this tree node has no value, but it has left. So left is a tree node. It has no value. That means 0, default value. But this tree node has right. This right side is another tree node with the value 7. Do you see that? We also learned pre-order, post-order, in-order. Pre-order means you are going to start from the root, left to right. That's a pre-order. Post-order starts from left, right, root. How about in-order? Left to root, right. Wow, you're so smart. You remember everything. Left, root, right. Remember that. If you're struggling to remember, you can think about the expression tree, like 3 plus 5. Pre means operator first, so plus 3, 5. Post means operator last, so 3, 5 plus. In order is regular way, so 3 plus 5. Then we also did this, like displaying the level in the APCS class. Because it was hard to print top to down, what we did was a 90-degree rotate printing. So by following this code, you probably printed root here. Then right is on the top, because this one is going the right first. Then right value was like a 0, but this right has left, that is 0. Then if this left had right, that is 7. Then left has a random value. When you print it, you didn't see the lines, so you probably saw only like looks like this. Then you were just looking at by putting your head down. Do you remember?